Today on the podcast, I'm excited to have Kayla from Oklahoma joining me today. Hi, Kayla.
Hello, how are you?
It's good to have you all the way
Yeah.
from Oklahoma.
Yes.
So, you were telling me that we somehow connected on Instagram. So, tell me a little bit about what drew you in.
Yeah, so I love studying psychology and all those kinds of different things, but I feel like I saw you maybe we're at a different church or something, and came across you on their Instagram, and you know how you fall into the Instagram hole of like one thing leads
Yeah.
to another, and I was like, wow, she's got a podcast, she has books. So I've been reading through those, been listening to the podcast, all the different kinds of things, but it's
Wow.
been really helpful.
That's amazing. And I think you joined one of our online seminars. So you have
Yes.
you've come into the deep end, girl.
Yes.
I
All the
love
hard
it.
work, all the hard work.
And it shows you that Instagram rabbit holes aren't always bad.
Exactly, they don't have to be.
Sometimes they can actually lead you into good places, but who you follow kind of
Yes.
determine the rabbit holes you're going to go down. And is it going to be a place of healing or is it going to be a place of distraction? So I'm just glad that we found each other.
Yes, me too, me too.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what's on your mind today.
Yeah, so, I am a middle school teacher who loves her job,
I'm
and
glad to hear that.
yeah.
You don't always hear that from middle school teachers.
Yes, I get told often, like, "You okay, you enjoy that?" But yeah, so I enjoy my job, but, people that care about me, that are close to me, that I care about, they often, I hear, "You work too much," or "You're always thinking about things that need to be done," or "Can't you just rest, or take a break," or "Why can't you take some time to do this or that?" And it's very difficult for me to explain to anyone, like the feeling, I guess, that comes from behind some of that stuff. But anytime I do take time to rest or pause or anything like that, I sometimes am overwhelmed with guilt. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of just I want to rest, but every time I do, it doesn't feel restful because then I feel guilty about taking the time. So that's kind of what I've been looking at lately.
Yeah. Okay, so what type of things do you not do without feeling guilt? What type of things do you like miss out on because of guilt? So rest would look like what, generally speaking?
Um, Things like having evenings free where I'm not working on things for the following week. Um, I volunteer a lot, and I always kind of have taken it as, I'm a single woman, and so I have the time and the ability to do these things that maybe other people don't. And so I've always kind of been called on as Kayla will say yes. And so
Yeah,
I do is the problem. I
yeah,
do say yes all the time, but then I just struggle with that boundary of, am I doing this for the right reason? While I'm doing something, am I feeling like I didn't want to actually do it? What's the heart posture behind that? And so I miss out on things with friends or family sometimes just because I'm so concerned with taking care of other things that are important to me.
so who is bringing this to your attention? Is it mostly yourself because you're feeling tired, bitter, resentful? Is it your family and friends because they're like, "Hey, you're missing everything." Like where do you think this is coming to your attention from which direction?
I would say probably the most is friends and family, mentioning it kind of often.
Yeah.
Internally for me, I am aware of it, but I've kind of just always internalized it and moved on, like, oh, well, everyone's tired or
Yeah.
everyone is busy. And so I've kind of made excuses, I guess, for me even knowing that I'm doing too much all the time.
Yeah. So I would say it's almost a combination of rest as well as the rhythm of boundaries, which I call protect and soul care. Seems like a little bit of both. Like you have a hard time saying no. Let's say you actually had an evening where there was nothing on the agenda. You didn't have to do any work for tomorrow. You could find stuff, but nothing you had to do. And you had the opportunity to have an evening to yourself to rest. What would that likely look like?
Um, Typically, if I have off time like that, then I'm usually doing something around the house. So I'm organizing something or cleaning something, or I'm really big into the like being prepared for the next thing. So
Hmm.
because I think in my brain it's this, well, if I get all of that done, then I can rest.
Hmm.
But what I've come to realize is that almost never happens. It never gets done, whatever it is, the projects, the things like that. So at home, I would say I don't really have a whole lot of time where I'm just doing nothing or enjoying the time, I guess. It's mostly spent doing projects still.
Yeah. So in that sense, you would say rest is kind of the reward that you can earn
Yes.
if you do everything just right and kind of get it all in order, but then you never get there. So
Yeah.
then you don't really get the opportunity to rest. Okay, so rest is the reward. That's kind of the belief system that we're dealing with here.
Okay.
And soul care, I spend the first 5 chapters talking about the why behind why is it difficult to care for ourselves before I get into the what of what to do about it.
Okay.
Because if you don't adjust and confront the why behind it, you can change your rhythms for a couple days, couple weeks, until eventually you'll default back to doing the same things again and again and again because it's rooted in some sort of a belief system.
Yeah.
Boundaries, rest, nourishment, all of the belief systems, all of the rhythms in soul care are rooted in belief systems of some
Mhm.
sort. So it seems like for you, rest is kind of the luxury, rest is the reward. Did I earn it or not?
Yeah.
Um, and then you talked about feeling guilty. Like
Yeah.
there's something inside of you that tells you that it's wrong to rest. Where do you think those type of beliefs started for you? Like how long has it been for you as you look back at your life that you have been feeling that it's wrong to rest if you haven't finished your work?
Um, I mean, most people close to me would probably tell you I've always been like this. So I mean, I was as far as like childhood and that kind of thing, I'm an oldest child, so kind of have some of that responsibility and taking care of things and making sure everything was good. And then, I think some of that trend just followed me into high school where I felt like I needed to be responsible for everything. And sometimes, tying responsibility into leadership, but that's not always the same thing.
Yeah.
But I've felt that for a long time. So probably honestly since I was a little kid.
Okay. Tell me what it was like as the firstborn in your family.
Uh, well, we went through some really rough seasons of things, and my mom was a single mom, and I had, 5 younger siblings to take care of all the time, and
Wow.
getting a little bit older into like high school years and such, had, an active addict in my family. And so it's kind of
When you
I
say
did
active addict, are you referring to a sibling?
yes.
Okay.
Um, and so it was kinda like a lot of focus was taken and put on that, and so somebody kinda had to be responsible to do everything else,
Right.
and that was usually me.
Yeah.
Wanting to make sure even emotionally, like, everybody's okay because, all of that can be so emotionally taxing for everyone, and so kinda just taking care of things, even when not asked, honestly, like, I would say most of
Right.
it probably I wasn't even asked to do it, but it
Right.
was just, I felt responsible for all those things.
You had this unspoken narrative that you were
Yeah.
telling yourself about your role in this family and and some of that happens unconsciously. Like you don't even realize you're doing that as the eldest. I don't think it's a coincidence so far that everyone I have recorded with so far, I still have a bunch of recordings left, have been firstborns.
We're struggling out here.
Firstborns who feel responsible,
Yeah.
even if no one ever told them they were, whether it's because the chaos of life or whether it's because the children behind them had more needs, louder needs.
Yeah.
Like even you talking about having an addict in the family, it feels like that's a really loud need.
Yeah.
And so our tendency when there's a loud need is to quiet our own needs, put them on the back burner. I'll deal with these myself, maybe if I have time, or ignore them altogether. Like, I don't actually have needs. I'm good. What do you need? How
Mm.
can I help you?
Yeah.
Because in doing so, it's your way of keeping equilibrium. You don't want the ship to sink.
Yeah.
So it's like, how can I kind of balance this? If there's high needs over there, I'm going to be low needs over here. If there's a lot of misbehaving over there, I'm going to do a lot of behaving over here because I want to balance. If they're not filling in the gaps, doing their role, taking responsibility, I'll just go ahead and take some of the responsibility for them so that it's balanced.
Yes.
And I can imagine that even more um, powerful when you come from a home with a single mom and six kids all together. Six altogether, right? You
Yeah.
and five siblings. That's a lot of kids. That's a lot of
Yeah.
needs,
Yeah.
you know? And so you carry that role, assuming that's your permanent role. And I always tell people the roles that once served you in childhood can sabotage you later in life
Mm.
if we don't confront them and decide, do I actually need this role anymore? Is this actually good for me in this season? Because just because it was helpful for you to survive in one season doesn't mean you need it in a different season.
That's so good. I feel that um because all of my siblings are adults now. And I understand exactly what you're saying because there have been times where I've, had a phone conversation because I moved away. um I've had a phone conversation with one of them, where I'm like, okay, if we were younger and this was happening and I was in the home still and I was talking to you about it, and like this would be received differently than it is now. But now that we're adults and I'm away and all these kinds of things, I still sometimes feel like it's my responsibility, or I need to go and have this conversation with them or help them through this, whatever it is. But it's not, it feels off, like something feels
Yeah.
off about that now.
Yeah. And, in your defense as a child, if brother number two, I'm just making stuff up here, doesn't do his chores and mom is frazzled and overwhelmed and you've done all your chores, it's like, okay, I'm just going to help him with his chores to get this over with,
Yes.
to achieve equilibrium and balance in the family. But what you don't know as a child is that's actually considered enabling behavior. It's not just helpful once it crosses the line of taking their responsibility away from them, it becomes enabling
Yeah.
because then there's no consequence. If I don't do it, it'll still get done,
Yep.
is their motto in life. Whereas your motto becomes, if I don't do it, nobody else will.
Yes.
And both of those are unbalanced narratives and can cause this pattern of enabling people to do less than their share because you're going to do more than your
Yeah.
share. And so that's the narrative that has to change for you in this season, is actually starting to see you doing more
Mhm.
as unhelpful to yourself, but also unhelpful to others if you're not allowing the people around you to step in and do what they need to do. They're
Yeah.
not having the opportunity to strengthen those muscles
Yeah.
because they don't have to.
Yeah.
Even when you think about church, for example, volunteers, it's like if you're going to do everything and fill in for everybody, those people who are on the fence and it's like, they have enough volunteers. I'm good
Yeah.
because Kayla's going to show up,
Yep.
versus if there's actually a gap and the church has to say, you guys, we have these needs, there's this gap. If you've never served before, this is your opportunity. And maybe then it'll cause those people to kind of step up and fill in. And also I think part of it too is the reminder that you have to trust God to fill in the gaps that you can't fill,
Mm. Yeah.
instead of just automatically filling them yourself.
Yeah. And I say I do, and that's kind of part of my issue is I say that I trust him with those things, or even, I trust him with my siblings, or I trust him with this work situation or anything like that. But then it's like my follow through and my action don't portray that. And so I have like this disconnect between knowing that, the Bible tells us we can give Jesus our burdens and me actually giving that to him.
Right, literally.
Yeah.
Literally, like I am gonna let you step in because I don't have the capacity.
Yeah. Like I struggle with that little part right there, like all the time.
And not only that, I think about the fact that you feel guilty when you rest, as if rest is this optional need. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll just put that on the back burner. It's not a luxury, it's a
Yeah.
necessity. And even your belief about why you're resting, it's not like pampering yourself to rest. It's fueling yourself and filling up so that you can do what God has called you to do to the
Mm.
best of your ability. When
Yeah.
we function out of a place of fullness versus functioning out of a place of emptiness. One of my favorite sections was the section about rest and soul care, and just specifically watching Jesus be so in tune to his capacity and when he needed to stop
Mm.
and rest, when he needed a nap after a long day of ministry, when he needed to stop and fill up
Yeah.
with his relationship with the Lord, even when they were traveling, and it would say Jesus became wearied with his journey. Like he was aware, hey, I'm tired. We
Yeah.
need to stop and rest. Let's stop and get some water. Let's stop and make sure we're doing okay. And he was Jesus, fully God,
Mm.
yet he honored his human capacity. And it's like if Jesus had to honor his human capacity, what do I think who do I think I am?
Yeah.
That I think I
Man.
don't have to honor it, or I feel guilty honoring it. You should feel guilty not honoring it, if anything,
Yeah, for sure.
and it starts with really analyzing that belief system. And for you specifically, that tendency to put your needs on the back burner
Mm.
and just focus on everybody else's needs. Focusing on everyone's needs is important,
Yeah.
but to consider your needs as well as the needs of others, because you're serving others out of your own capacity.
Yeah.
So you've got to be filled if you want to do a good job with others.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like my biggest thing too is I'm like I know to be able to help people the best, I need to have Jesus there to do it with me, and the like giving it to him has been, a struggle, like I guess what that tangibly looks like on a daily level. But I definitely know what it feels like when I don't.
Yeah.
But instead of just pushing past that, which is what I've often done, I've never even thought about the fact that Jesus was in tune with that stuff, but then actually did pause.
He did
I'm in
something
tune
about
with
it.
it, but I
Right.
just keep going.
He responded to the signal
Yeah,
and honored his capacity in that
yeah,
way, and ultimately honored those around him.
yeah.
Because I could guarantee you he wasn't short, agitated, resentful, bitter, irritated. I'm just tired. You guys are just sucking the life out of me,
Yeah,
because he stayed filled.
yeah, and his heart was in the right place, and that's a big thing for me is I'll be doing something or helping somebody, and then halfway through it, I'll realize I'm exhausted and I didn't wanna do this, but I said
Right,
yes anyway, and with him, if he was rested like he needed to be,
right.
then he said yes to the right things.
Exactly. And he also said a lot of no's. You'll
Yes.
read all about that in the section called Protect,
Awesome.
of how he set boundaries and what
Yeah,
that looked like, and what it looks like for us to model that in our life as well, because this stuff is so important.
yeah.
You know, rest is the way that we fill up the tank. Boundaries is the way that we plug the holes,
Mm,
so that things aren't just kind of coming out.
that's good.
Our energy's not getting drained and depleted. So I want to end with this thought. What are some things that fill you up and make you feel rested? Do you know that about yourself?
Yeah. Um, I am an extrovert, so being able to hang out and have some quality time with friends is awesome. Um, Most recently, I've uh, done a lot of just being outside, as simple as that is, going outside for walks and that kind of thing. Having the time to read an actual book and be able to, take notes or something like that. That's always really good. Um, Even fun stuff, go to the movies, all of that kind of thing. A good nap. Oh my goodness. So a good nap sometimes, all of that kind of stuff is typically what helps me uh, feel rest when I actually make time for that.
Yeah. And so a big part of this is really unraveling your belief system,
Hmm.
because guilt is not just a feeling.
Yeah.
Guilt is a thought process.
Mm.
So the underlying thought process is what leads you to feel guilty.
Yeah.
If I'm taking a nap and I'm thinking I should be doing something right now and I have so much that needs to be done and I'm just stalling and procrastinating and I have all this work to do, it's not going to be a good nap, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, you're going to feel guilty because guilt comes from those thoughts. But if you're taking a nap and you're thinking, this is my opportunity to fill up, I have limited capacity, and I am trusting God in this hour that He can do what only He can do, and that He is still moving while I am resting, and that this is a necessity for me to keep doing the work that God has called me to do. And by honoring my body, I'm honoring God.
Mm.
When you change your thought process and your belief system, you're not going to feel guilt out of that. You're going to
Yeah.
feel really grateful for this nap and wake up refreshed, and then most likely do an even better job with your afternoon because you feel rested.
Yeah.
So I want you to really tune into that guilt. Whenever you feel guilt, I want you to backpedal
Okay.
and think, okay, what is the thought process underneath this guilt? And is it a thought process that's carried from my roles in childhood?
Mm.
Or is it a thought process that's linked to who I am in Christ today? Is it a thought process that's laced with trauma or
Yeah.
laced with God's truth?
Oh man. Yeah.
And I have a feeling when you start to lace it with truth, the guilt's going to disappear.
Mm. I love that.
So, your job this week is to be really in tune to the guilt when it pops up.
Okay.
What is the signal? Okay, I feel guilty. What is this thought process underneath that?
Yeah.
And do some work there. Allow God to help you start to adjust some of those narratives and align them to his truth.
Yeah. And that won't even like take very long. That's just like confronting it right when it happens. I'm like, why am I feeling like this?
Right.
Ah, man, that's so good. Thank you so much.
Instead of ignoring it, pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And maybe even write it down. Start taking notes and journaling and
Yeah.
kind of being in tune. And I also, with your history, challenge you to do a little digging in your past and some of those roles. And it might be a good season to pop back in. Have you ever done any counseling?
I have. It was probably a year ago now, and I was just thinking, kind of digging into your books and that kind of thing. I was like, I need to get back in that because I think the season is right for me,
Yeah, it might
where
be a
I'm like
good
willing to do
season
the work now.
for the next layer of
Yes,
healing
exactly.
and being able to look back and start to do things differently.
Yeah.
And of course, make sure to sit down and
Yeah.
read through Soul Care. I think it'll really
Yeah.
encourage you and
I'm so
challenge you.
excited.
Well, thank you so much, Kayla, for being
Yeah.
here and for joining me and for sharing your story.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.